Kenya University Staff Union KUSU joined their colleagues in condemning the university's move, terming it as unlawful and an act of intimidation. Union leaders vowed to continue with the strike until all their demands are fully met, urging the government and university management to address the plight of workers instead of resorting to punitive measures.
On that document in
Members of staff at the Technical University of Kenya shall not be on duty until all the items in the strike notice are undressed.
The people we are demanding our rights from are harassing us by locking us out of a public institution,
shame on them,
by interdicting us, by giving us half our salaries. And if you are so efficient in interdicting, why will you not be efficient in paying our full salaries?
The issues in Tuk are historical. And we have said we will not want the history to repeat itself in TUK. Things must be sorted, and they must be sorted now. Those who are responsible for sorting out the issues in Tuk are known. It is not the employees. It is the employer. It is the Minister of what? Education.
And Kenya and Senegal have officially signed a visa-free agreement allowing citizens of both countries to travel without a visa for up to 3 months. The move is expected to strengthen diplomatic relations and boost trade, tourism, and cultural exchange between the two nations. The agreement signed during a ceremony held at State House, Nairobi, also included measures to eliminate trade barriers and promote the free flow of goods and services. Both the governments expressed optimism that the partnership will open new economic opportunities and enhance regional cooperation. And speaking during the signing ceremony, the two leaders reaffirmed their commitment to deepening bilateral ties and exploring joint initiatives, including sports programs to foster mutual growth and development.
We recognize the foundations that already exist between our two nations and are pleased to announce the conclusion of a new visa waiver arrangement that will allow citizens of both countries visa-free travel for up to 90 days. This important milestone will foster stronger people-to-people ties and boost tourism, trade, and collaboration. In a bid to deepen our bilateral ties, the Joint Commission for Cooperation remains a vital platform for monitoring and expanding our bilateral agreements. Kenya is ready to host the inaugural session of the Joint Cooperation Commission in the second half of the year 2026 through the JCC. We will strengthen cooperation in several sectors that are mutually beneficial for our two nations. In particular, we will engage and seek to conclude new instruments that will expand our bilateral cooperation. On trade and economic cooperation, we noted that trade volumes between Kenya and Senegal remains very low. To address this, we commit to working together to remove barriers, enhance transport and digital infrastructure, while harmonizing standards and promoting business-to-business engagement.
We have noted perfect agreement and alignment of views on the challenges facing the continent. I am aware of your commitment in peace efforts in the sub-region, and I would like to congratulate you for that and encourage you to continue on that dynamics by promising that you will always be able to count on my personal commitment and Senegal's full support for the success in these initiatives of peace and security in the region. Senegal is willing to work together with Kenya for better taking into account Africa's priorities at national, continental, and international levels. Allow me to conclude, Mr. President, by thanking you once again for the honor bestowed on me and invite you to visit Senegal and tell you that the people of Senegal would be delighted to host you in the tradition of Senegalese hospitality, teranga, which is our tradition. Thank you very much.
The Council of Governors COG has accused Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale of causing instability in the health sector, blaming him for the ongoing strike and the suspension of critical reforms. And speaking during the 27th annual conference of the Kenya Clinical Officers Association in Naivasha, Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga, who chairs the COG Health Committee, described Duale as a non-collaborative leader who suppresses engagement with key stakeholders in the sector. Kahiga warned that the county's healthcare system is on the verge of collapse, citing constant leadership changes at the Ministry of Health as a major contribution to poor service delivery. He said every new cabinet secretary introduces new policies that remain incomplete, further weakening the system.
When we politicize health, when we politicize your agenda, you have seen what is happening. And allow me to address the UHC issue at this point and say, if we stopped politicizing that matter, we would have solved it 3 years ago. But every other time we move, number one, we have a challenge of high turnover of CSs in that ministry. Even before you have agreed with one, we are now in our third one, who is also becoming a bully. And we must say this. Because this is a new expenditure, we want a conditional grant that will ensure, number one, these UHC staff for the next 2 or 3 years are assured of their salaries in the way they are, the SRC, because allowing them to just walk away and you are told to go to counties, there's going to be a challenge. The second thing that sized, the need to caution county government employees from losing their cover due to delayed exchequer disbursements. Negotiations on this matter are ongoing at high-level intergovernmental forums. From COG, our directive has also been very clear that every county must endeavor to provide over and above SHA medical insurance for all employees and yourselves. These people have been working for the last almost 6 years. They are entitled to a gratuity that must be paid. If we have to address fair labor practices, they must be paid. But what the whole idea is that someone is trying to offload them so that they can go and will have no basis of claiming what they are rightfully supposed to be paid.
Salaries and Remuneration Commission SRC nominee Michael King has pledged to prioritize transparency, communication and stakeholder engagement if approved as the commissioner. Appearing before the National Assembly Labour Committee, King acknowledged that the SRC had previously failed to engage Parliament early enough before making key decisions, leading to misunderstandings and mistrust. He emphasized that open dialogue and collaboration with all stakeholders would be central to his approach in strengthening the Commission's effectiveness. And during the vetting session, Trans Nzoia Women Representative Lilian Siyoi questioned Kingi on how he plans to address persistent salary disparities in the public despite previous SRC interventions. She noted that many civil servants remain underpaid, calling for practical reforms to ensure fairness.
Communication is the key and transparency is the key. I think it's good always to prepare stakeholders before doing anything. Maybe that time SRC did engage Parliament early enough so that they know what they are supposed to do. But it is always good, given that this is a house that does oversight. And I think it's good also the SRC be reporting and does report to this house. It's always good, leave alone this house, even in other stakeholders. It's good to prepare them. Always communicate to them, be transparent to them, and if possible, you have a joint meeting with them. You prepare them. And anything you do should have a reference, should have evidence-based. We are doing this because of ABCD. The physical realities in this country are not correct. They can't allow us to add even a singleton. But you need to show evidence why you cannot give members the 250. You prepare them early.
The employees on public service salary are underpaid. If you go through their job groups, you'll realize what they're being paid is not enough to sustain somebody, pay his bills, develop himself, and feed well. I don't know what measures, because you said you are a very good analyst. And I'm so sure after you are nominated on this position, probably you have gone through the job groups and the salary scales of our employees. What are you going to do on this so that at least we help our people? Because I really feel like they are stressed, they are pressed somewhere.
SRC does job evaluation, then advises ministry and government agencies on what it's supposed to do. That's why he's saying Parliament do not pay this. But still there's a problem, because you see, once job evaluation has been done, a report has been given out for implementation for these different ministries and agencies. You see there's no follow-up. There's zero, sometimes there's zero implementation or limited implementation. However, SRC advises that pay 10 shillings, somebody will not be able to pay that 10 shillings. He does his own things there. He still pays the 12 shillings. So the best thing to help those who are underpaid is to make sure that SRC does a follow-up in enforcing all these recommendations.
The government's decision to award the late former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, Kenya's highest national honor, has sparked mixed reactions across the country. Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya has questioned the significance of the award, arguing that it holds little meaning since Raila was not recognized while he was still alive. And speaking after the announcement, Natembeya noted that Raila's lifelong contribution to democracy, justice and political reform should have been acknowledged during his lifetime rather than posthumously. He described the move as symbolic but overdue, adding that Kenyans continue to celebrate Raila's legacy as a champion of democracy and a steadfast advocate for the rights of ordinary citizens.
We are a pretentious, hypocritical country. Ni nini lizuia rais kwa mfano kumpatia Raila CGH wakati alikuwa alive? Of what value is that medal to him now? Hata ivaa kwa shingo. Nasema is posthumous for what? Nataka kusema kwamba Raila alikuwa hai, hatuko tunaona mambo yake mazuri amekufa ndio tukayaona. Until lying was not part of the ideals of Raila. Raila was a man who was committed to the truth, saying the truth and face the consequences. One of our government do that by choice because you believe it's good. Lakini mseme kwamba Raila juzi wameweka into law sheria ambayo inakuja kugandamiza vijana wetu. And wewe andike kitu kwa mtandao, mimi natukanwa kila siku kwa mtandao, nimekufa. The freedom of speech, the freedom of expression is in our constitution. If we love Raila, the freedom fighter, the man who wanted to dedicate the welfare of our people, we cannot speak from both sides of our mouths. We cannot. Huwezi kusifu Raila ni mzuri na ile madili alikuwa anasimamia mnaanza kuikandamiza.
And before we shift to newspaper review, there's something that I feel it is something that should be put into your notice concerning the cybercrime bill. And we need to know that the cybercrime bill is now an act of parliament, which means that it is now enforceable. Kindly bear in mind the following. There are some things that you need to know or even to keep in line with or to keep updated with. And in section 3, it is an offense to access someone's phone or computer, and this interprets to 5 years imprisonment. And section 4, it is an offense to modify, delete, or obstruct someone's data, and this also interprets to 5 years imprisonment. And in section 5, it is an offense to communicate critical information to someone not authorized, and this interprets to 15 years imprisonment. And section 6, it is an offense to possess critical information, 15 years imprisonment. Section 10, it is an offense to record private conversation even if you're part of the conversation, and this interprets into 2 years imprisonment. And section 19, it is an offense to publish misleading information, 2 years imprisonment. And section 21, when you receive a summon or police call out for cyber crimes, it is an offense to disclose that, and this is 5 years imprisonment. And section 22, it is an offense to be rude, indecent, or vulgar with intent to humiliate, and this interprets to 2 years imprisonment. Section 24, it is an act of domestic terrorism to attempt to incite ethnic divisions among the people of the public, and this interprets into imprisonment for life. And I think actually it's a controversial bill, and this does need to be handled or even taken care of in our courts or corridors of justice. And I hope when taken to the parliament, I think it would be discussed well, and I think we shall have a solution for the same, because if you take back into remembrance and into your memory very well, is that these controversial bills were signed in when the bad news or even the death of Raila broke the morning of 15th day of October this year. So this is to mean that there are something that maybe as a country that we don't have to side with or even to support. So I hope that is information that you needed for yourself, and going forward it will be discussed in Parliament, and I think we shall have measures or even trying to cap or even trying to make the bill or the law become a bit suitable for normal Kenyan citizens. That's what we have. We're transitioning to newspaper review after this short break.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
It is great to have you. We want to get into the newspaper review to just understand what is making headlines this morning across the local dailies. I do have the Standard and the Star with me, and we continue to have conversations around the former and the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga, whose shadow continues to be felt across the political spectrum. And that is one of the issues that has made headline on the Daily Nation this morning. So I'll kick it off with the top page. What did Raila say? That is the headline on the Daily Nation. Orange Party split by wrangles on its 20th anniversary. Now, factional wars within the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, have intensified, with rivals clashing on the political direction decreed by party leader Raila Odinga, who died last Wednesday. The dispute is on the outfit's commitment on the broad-based government and the subsequent support for President Ruto's re-election. Twin issues over which each side is conveniently interpreting Raila's word to its advantage. The question is, what was his wish and what did Raila say? Now, before I can get into some of the sentiments by some of the leaders, just to give you a bit of backup information on just how we got to this point where we are questioning what he actually said. With the formation of the broad-based government, Odinga said that he had donated experts from the ODM party to the government, and has often more than not said that they are not part of the government, but they're just helping the government. And this was interpreted to mean that, you know, in future elections, especially the by-elections that are to come in November, or the 2027 polls, then ODM would be fielding its own presidential candidate. Now, just about 3 weeks before he passed away on the 22nd of September, he held a meeting where he was speaking with members of parliament from the ODM party, and he questioned them on who told you that ODM is not going to field a presidential candidate. That was the question. And so many have interpreted that this was his stance, while others have continued to talk about previous engagements, especially one where he was at Phoebe Asio's state funeral, which he attended together with President Ruto. And he said that one term, so what, you know? And so this was also interpreted to mean that he's not really in support of the one-term initiative, and that he's in support of the broad-based government, to which he said this was the way that Kenya would have been saved. So ODM cracks clearly visible, especially during the burial ceremony of their party leader on Sunday. So what did the leaders say? The Secretary General ODM, Edwin Sifuna, said Raila said as a party we must prepare ourselves for the 2027 general elections. Thus spreading other narratives here, Raila has previously asked them, who has told you? We will follow the last standing instruction of Raila. Siaya Governor James Orengo says, I am one of the people who believe we must keep ODM. President Ruto, let us not kill parties. Political parties are the foundation of democracy. Kisii Governor Simba Arati, who's the deputy party leader, says, I want to assure ODM members the party is going nowhere. We have just started the struggle and we must win the presidential election. Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga, who's the ODM national chairperson, says the last instruction he left us with, and I remember him speaking at the burial of Dr. Phoebe Asio, he said, and he made a clear decision to work with Ruto. This is the last standing instruction that Baba gave us. So clearly, the national chairperson and the Secretary General are reading from different scripts. Minority Leader Junet Mohammed says Raila told us to remain in the broad-based government, and it is on record. ODM will either form the government or be part of the government. So, you know, it really goes back to how have they interpreted what Raila Odinga said just a few weeks before he passed away. And, you know, that's the thing about English, isn't it? Is that when you make a statement, and, you know, you don't keep on clarifying this statement yourself, somebody is going to take this statement and they are going to interpret it in their own way. And this is going to possibly clash, clash on the messaging aspect of it, because now the conveyor of the message is not here to clarify what he said. So they say dead men tell no tales, and now functional wars in the ODM party threaten the survival of the 20-year-old outfit as it charts its course without founding leader Raila Odinga. Odinga will never ever get a chance to clarify what he may have meant, which is now subject to interpretation by those who claim to have spoken to him in his final days on earth. The wars, which started moments before Odinga was buried on Sunday, are anchored on the confusion over what exactly he said about the future of the party, whether it should remain in the broad-based government or exit and contest the 2027 elections. Now, if you look at some of these leaders, for instance, the ODM SG Edwin Sifuna, he's been very consistent with his view and ideology on where he stands with the broad-based government, and says, you know, there's the 10-point agenda which they signed with UDA party. And the agreement was if the UDA party breaks even one of this 10-point agenda, then there is no deal. In a media interview, a local TV station before, He talked about the issue on enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, and the fact that they happened despite the fact that the broad-based 10-point agenda clearly states that that should not happen. It happened. And so that, he says that automatically is a breach of this 10-point agenda, which puts an end to the broad-based agreement or working formula. But when you have that particular kind of ideology and you have those quote-unquote experts in government say that Raila left them in government, or took them to government, left them in government, and that means they're not coming out of government. Opiyo Wandayi, the Cabinet Secretary for Energy, during a visit to the Bondo House, or to Bondo within some of the days of the funeral preparations, actually said it out loud to the media and said, they were left in government and so they're not going to leave government, especially as the people from the Luo Nyanza region. And so brings up two different sides of ODM party. But if you look at those particular cabinet secretaries, once you're appointed as a CS, you automatically cease to hold any party position or to hold any position within parliament. And so essentially, they are not speaking as ODM members, they are speaking as former ODM party members. Do they hold any weight in terms of the decision making within ODM party? Not theoretically, no. Not in paper, no, because they're not ODM party members. They do not hold any position. Mbadi was the national chairman, right, of ODM party. So after being appointed to cabinet, had to seize that particular position. It was given to Gladys Wanga. So essentially, he has no authority to make any decision on the party on paper. And they may try to, push and pull this sort of decision just from outside the circles in the name of being former party members. But it is a thing to be seen. We have to wait and just see whether or not they can, sort of put any weight on the decision that is going to be made by ODM party. And so that is where it is. To be or not to be with Ruto, ODM chiefs differ on fallen leaders' wish. And this is something that is going to test the party. ODM has boasted of being one of the strongest party, not just in Kenya, but within East Africa region. And so this is going to test, the strength of ODM party and just how much the leaders are willing to stand on their own ideologies, and will that compromise the party in the days to come. Now, coincidentally, ODM was to celebrate 20 years this October. And that event was to be held in Mombasa, but was postponed after Odinga left the country for medical attention in India. And so their celebrations did not go through. Question is, this will be the first test of the ODM party on whether they can agree to actually continue ahead and host, or celebrate this 20 years since its formation back in 2005, or whether these sort of disagreements now paints the picture of, what's the essence of us celebrating 20 years when we can't agree. So that perhaps will be the first big litmus test. And if they can get their own members and their NDCs, the National Executive Council, the National Governing Council, to go to Mombasa and to hold these 20 years, then perhaps, just perhaps, this will be the start of a new future for ODM party. So that is the headline this morning on the Daily Nation. I'd love to hear from you this morning what you think the way ahead is for ODM party. And is this a break or make moment? Are they going to stand firm and avoid any sort of outside interference from the likes of UDA party, who may covet, ODM's crumbling? It's the political world. At the end of the day, any political party vies or presents candidates to get power, whether it's the presidential, the governorship, the MCA, the MP seat, the women representative, senatorial seat. It's always a question on, can they get power? And so I can assure you, UDA is going to covet, pardon me, UDA is going to covet, the split within ODM party as it weighs on if they can utilize and take advantage of that. Now, also top of the page, they went to mourn their leader. Now they are two in coffins. Families of 3 people shot dead by police and 2 others killed in a stampede during Odinga's funeral are preparing for their burials. And so that is a story that is on page 3 this morning, where we have Evans Onyango Kiche, Vincent Otieno Ogutu, Josephine Okengo, and Josephi Jida Buka, who lost their lives while bidding farewell to Raila. Now, the last time Yvonne Akinyi had her husband Vincent Otieno voice, he sounded happy. It was last Wednesday afternoon, and Otieno was calling from Nairobi, where he lived with their firstborn daughter. He had called to check on Akinyi and their 6-year-old twin daughters in Rongo. Otieno had gone to Kasarani to view the body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga when the farewell turned into a day of horror. According to the wife, she was at work, and at around 4 p.m. she saw his photo on social media with people saying that he had been shot at Kasarani Sports Complex. And that is the story of one Vincent Otieno Ogutu. Now, for Brenda Akoth, that Thursday began like any other day. Her husband, Evans Onyango Kiche, left home at 5:30 for work at the Pan-African Christian University in Roysambu. By 3 p.m., his phone was off, and she thought that there was bad network. She called again at 8 p.m., and it was still off. She got worried. She logged on Facebook and saw a message entitled Emergency Evans Kiche. And there was a phone number. When she called the number, the man asked who she was. And when she said she was the wife, he gave her the number of a lady who had booked her husband's body at the Nairobi funeral home. And so it's quite sad, really, with the stampede that happened, especially at Kasarani Stadium, because after, Odinga's body jetted back in the country on Thursday morning, actually. And, there was that 5-hour trip to Kasarani Stadium. On getting to Kasarani Stadium, there was mass of people, and there was a huge number of people. And in efforts by the police to, quote-unquote, control the crowd, they started firing randomly in the air. We saw tear gas canisters. There were allegations of live bullets that were being used. And unfortunately now 4 people have died during that particular stampede at the Kasarani Stadium. Now, there are also reports of a stampede at Nyayo Stadium, where another tragedy unfolded last Friday with a state funeral for Odinga that had ended and dignitaries had left the venue. Josephine Okengo, a single mother of 3, is among the people who lost their lives. Her Terry daughter, Veronica Kangwa, a first-year student at the Cooperative University of Kenya, recounted their final moments after she left, after the mother had left for Nyayo and they were doing laundry, and the neighbor came and convinced her to go and view Raila Odinga's body. Well, the mother had hesitated at first, and she even said she had a bad feeling, but the neighbor insisted. And they wore blue dresses, both of them. And that was the last time she saw her mother alive, and now they're planning for the funeral. So it's quite sad. Now, pathologist Dr. Bernard Media, who conducted postmortem examinations on the 4 bodies, said they had bullets. And so IPOA has taken up the issue and will be looking to see what decision or what's the way forward. And question is there going to be any police officer indicted, putting in mind that this is a place where there were a massive number of police officers, and so it's quite sad, really. Now, I'd love to link a story here on the Standard newspaper this morning that talks of Out with Freedoms. That is the headline on the Standard newspaper, Out with Freedoms. Now, midnight laws. 4 hours after Raila Odinga's death, President Ruto signed 8 controversial bills into law. Measures critics say betray the very freedoms Raila spent his life defending. Among them is the new Cybercrimes Act, which, while tightening safeguards against online fraud and harassment, hides vague clues or clauses that could muzzle free speech and silence dissent. Former Chief Justice David Maraga has condemned the move as a mockery of Raila's legacy and announced plans to challenge the laws in court. I don't know if we can listen into the former Chief Justice David Maraga just before we can take a look at what is in this Cybercrime Act and some of the implications of what happens when you post something online that the government deems wrong and illegal. If we could listen into Chief Justice David Maraga, the former Chief Justice David Maraga, on why this particular law is not good for Kenya.
wanataka kufunga midomo yetu tusije tukazungumze yale ambao tunaona yanaendelea. Wanataka kuuza mali ya Wakenya kiolela. Na mwishowe muangalie vizuri. Hayo mali hayatauzwa kwa watu wa mbali, ni wao watajiuzia wao wenyewe na wala ambao ni wasaidizi wao. Kwa hivyo ni kusema ya kwamba serikali ya Ruto inataka kujiuzia mali ya Kenya wao wenyewe na marafiki zao, na hiyo hatuwezi kubali kabisa.
All right, so that is former Chief Justice David Maraga, who has criticized President Ruto for sending to 8 controversial bills last Wednesday, on the day the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga died, in fact, that particular morning. Now, he said one grants the executive a sweeping mandate on the sales of state farms, while another gives it unilateral powers to crack down on free speech. So the Cyber Crimes Act and the implications. Now, it criminalizes publishing false digital information with a threat of up to 3 years imprisonment or fines of 5 million shillings. The vague definition of cyber harassment targets activists and opposition figures, handing them jail terms of 5 years or 10 million shillings fines. Now, state agencies can block websites or online content without the court approval, enabling shutdowns of critical media and voices of dissent. So state agencies can block websites or even applications, without court approval, enabling shutdowns of critical media and voice of dissent. It allows police to demand user data from service providers, raising concerns over political spying and privacy violations. Its vague wording and possible retroactive enforcement of the law creates fear, leading to censorship and self-censorship online. So the Cybercrime Act is truly one of the bills that was signed into law. Others include the National Land and Commission Amendment Bill, the Land Amendment Bill, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Bill, the National Police Service Amendment Bill, the Air Passenger Service Charge Amendment Bill, the Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill, and the Privatization Act National Assembly Bill of 2025. But really what has got the attention of many is on this Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Amendment Bill of 2024. Now, this is such an integral bill because Kenya is a country of freedom of speech, right? It is one of the rights guaranteed under the 2010 Constitution. And so with the rise of political dissent or contrast voices in the political spectra, are we still going to have guaranteed freedom of speech where, yes, there's a limit to what you can post in terms of, is it cyberbullying? Is it online harassment? But at the same time, if it's not that, is it just you expressing your views online? Now, the question is, you may express your view online, and then somebody who the views targets feel offended. And in this case, let's say the government feels offended or feels like this is illegal, just the feeling of it being illegal, and they decide to crack down on you. And this means if you're taken to court, then you're going to be charged and you face up to 3 years imprisonment or even a 5 million shillings fine, and that is on criminalizes publishing false digital information. And so it is it's a catch-22 situation really, because we understand why they want to do this, to sort of curtail on the spread of false information and perhaps online mobilization, as we saw with the 2024 finance bill. But at the same time, it should not be able to curtail the freedoms of Kenyans. So the retired Chief Justice David Maraga has criticized Ruto for assenting into law the bill, and Maraga says the matter will now be resolved by the courts, as he questioned the urgency of assenting them into law at a time the country was in mourning. Now, the former Chief Justice said the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act may be used to target critics of government, and that the hefty fines would inhibit freedoms by instilling fear. He accused Parliament of being used as a rubber stamp by the executive. Now, separately, gospel musician Reuben Kigame and the Kenya Human Rights Commission moved to court seeking suspension of the implementation of the particular act, arguing that the law is unconstitutional. In their petition filed at the Milimani High Court, the applicants stated that the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Bill of 2024 was passed by Parliament and assented to President without the participation and approval of the Senate. The petition lists the AG and the Speaker of the Assembly as the respondents. Also enjoined as interested parties is the Kenya Union of Journalists, the Media Council of Kenya, and the Law Society of Kenya, as well as the Data Protection Commissioner. So we'll be waiting to see what exactly is the way forward for this, but they've been calling on the President to repeal this law. Well, arguably the country has been in mourning, so we've not seen any response from the state or the government, but that is something that we'll be looking forward to see. So those are some of the headlines this morning on the newspapers. Largely the same stories on the future of ODM party, as well as the KCSE exams, which kicked off yesterday with foreign languages, English, German, the Kenya Sign Language, where, you know, despite lack of capitation, the exams had to continue, and we wish all KCSE candidates the best ahead of as well. The Kenya Junior School Examination Assessment and the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, that is KEPSEA and KJSEA exams next week. So those are your headlines on the newspapers this morning, and we'll be following up on some of these stories as the day breaks to bring you the latest and what is making headlines on the fields. Thank you for watching Morning Live. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a wonderful morning.